When the alien warships arrived, the sky split open like a wound. The first wave came without sound, silver arcs burning through the clouds, too fast for the human eye to follow. Then came the thunder, a deep, endless roar that made the ground tremble and the oceans shudder. Cities vanished in seconds. Satellites burned out, and the networks went dark. The invasion wasn't a battle. It was an extinction event disguised as precision. The aliens, the Cathari, didn't speak, didn't send demands, didn't parley. They simply appeared, efficient and merciless, dismantling humanity piece by piece. Ava Santoro watched it all from a shattered observation tower in what used to be Geneva. She had been a xenobiologist before the world ended, one of the few scientists who had actually studied the Cathari before they declared humans biological pollution. She had called them monsters, not out of hatred, but because it was the only word her mind could find for something so methodical, so distant, so cruel. The Cathari were beautiful in a way that defied reason. Sleek, tall, crystalline forms wrapped in biometal armor that pulsed like living muscle. They didn't bleed when wounded. They simply shed fragments of light. Humanity had tried to communicate with them once, and the Cathari had responded by sterilizing entire continents. Ava had survived by accident. When the Cathari raised the European defense hubs, her transport had crashed into a glacial valley near the Alps. The pilot died instantly. She had lived, half buried in ice, for 3 days before the snowstorm cleared. When she crawled from the wreck, she saw the world as the Cathari had remade it. Quiet, empty, stripped of human noise. The sky glowed with their ship's pale light, and every horizon carried the hum of their harvesters tearing the land apart. She spent months running, hiding, scavenging food from dead outposts, learning which sounds meant death and which meant the aliens were just passing by. Every time she saw them, her hatred grew. The way they moved, unhurried, unafraid, as if humanity had never mattered. Monsters, she thought. Cold, perfect monsters. Then one day, she found him. It was in the ruins of an old research facility buried beneath the mountains. The building had once been part of her own program, Project Chiron, an experimental joint lab meant to study xenobiological adaptation. The place was silent now, overgrown with ice and moss, but when she pried open the lower hatch, she heard movement. Not human! Something metallic. She froze, knife in hand, ready to flee. Then a voice spoke, not through her ears, but directly into her mind. "Don't run." The words were strangely soft, accented, not human but close. Ava spun around, scanning the darkness. Then she saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows, tall and radiant. The faint blue glow of its veins casting light on the walls. It was Cathari, but different. Its armor was cracked, its movements uneven, one arm sparking with damaged circuitry. When it looked at her, its eyes, if those glowing slits could be called that, flickered uncertainly. "I am not your enemy," it said haltingly, as if the words hurt. Ava raised her knife. "Every one of your kind says that right before you burn another city," she hissed. "I have burned no cities." "Then what are you doing here?" The creature hesitated. "I was exiled." Ava didn't believe it. But she also didn't run. Something in its voice, the strange broken rhythm of it, kept her rooted. The Cathari tilted its head slightly, studying her. "Your species was not meant to die this way," it said. "I warned them. They did not listen." "You're lying," she snapped. "You're all part of the same swarm." "If I were, you would already be dead." That shut her up. For a moment, neither of them moved. The wind howled through the broken corridors, carrying the faint metallic scent of decay. Ava's mind raced. Every instinct screamed at her to kill it or flee, but curiosity, old, stubborn, scientific curiosity, overpowered fear. "You said you were exiled," she said slowly. "Why?" The Cathari's glow dimmed. "Because I refused the purge." Ava frowned. The purge, the alien operation that had wiped out half of Earth's biosphere, was something every survivor whispered about. To hear one of them admit it was almost surreal. "You refused?" she repeated. "Yes." Its voice dropped to a low hum. "I believed your kind could change. That we could coexist. Ava almost laughed. That didn't work out very well. No, it said quietly. It did not. She should have walked away then. But something in the alien's stillness made her hesitate. Its injuries were severe. She could see the pulsing black ichor leaking from its side, sizzling as it hit the floor. Without thinking, she stepped closer. "You're dying," she said. The Cathari looked at her, almost amused. "Yes, you need, I don't know, whatever you people use to heal. Nanites, gone." "Gone? I destroyed them." She blinked. "Why would you do that?" "So they could not control me anymore." The simplicity of it silenced her. Ava lowered her knife. Against her better judgment, she moved closer and tore open her pack. She still carried some medical gel and binding tape. "You're lucky I'm not as smart as I used to be," she muttered, kneeling beside him. The Cathari's crystalline skin was warm to the touch, almost like human flesh beneath the surface. As she wrapped the bandage, the alien watched her intently, head tilted in that curious, bird-like way. "You are not afraid," it said. "I'm terrified," she replied. "I'm just better at hiding it." Its eyes flickered again, faintly brighter. "You speak truth. That is rare." Ava worked in silence, her mind buzzing. She didn't know why she was doing this. Helping one of them, the very creatures that had killed everyone she loved. Maybe it was because he wasn't acting like the others. Maybe because, in this empty, dying world, the sound of another voice, any voice, felt like a miracle. When she finished, she leaned back and wiped her hands. "That should keep you from leaking for a while," she said. The alien inclined his head slightly. "You have saved me. Don't get used to it." "I will not." There was something almost human in his tone. Something that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. "Do you have a name?" she asked finally. The Cathari hesitated, then said, "They called me Kale." Kale. She tried the word on her tongue. It felt strange but not unpleasant. "I'm Ava." "Ava," he repeated, as if memorizing it. For a long time they said nothing. Outside the wind howled through the mountains, but in that buried ruin there was an odd kind of peace. Ava found herself studying him, the way the light inside him pulsed like a heartbeat, the faint shimmer of frost on his armor. He was alien, yes, but not monstrous, not in the way she had always believed. When Kale finally spoke again, his voice was soft. "Your world still breathes," he said. "It suffers, but it endures." She looked away. "Not for long." "It will," he said, and she couldn't tell if it was faith or knowledge. That night, Ava sat awake while Kale powered down to rest. The storm outside raged against the walls and she stared at the flickering shadows, her thoughts circling like vultures. She had called them monsters. It had been easier that way, to believe they were soulless, irredeemable things. But now, sitting across from one who bled, who spoke, who defied his own kind to save hers, she wasn't so sure. When she finally closed her eyes, she dreamed, not of the cities burning, but of the stars above them, bright and endless. And somewhere among those stars a voice whispered, not in words, but in feeling. It wasn't alien. It wasn't human. It was something in between. In the morning, she woke to find Kale gone. Panic surged through her until she saw the tracks outside, light, deliberate, leading toward the ridge. She followed them, cursing under her breath, until she found him standing at the edge of the world, looking out at the dawn. The rising sun glinted off the snow, painting his silhouette in gold. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Kale turned, his gaze unreadable. "Because once your kind tried to help us," she frowned. "What do you mean?" But he didn't answer. He only looked toward the horizon where the remains of alien warships glowed faintly in the morning light. And for the first time, Ava realized there was a story buried beneath this invasion, one that the survivors had never heard. And somewhere deep inside her, for reasons she didn't understand, she wanted to hear it. Ava didn't know why she followed Kale. Maybe it was because she had no better choice. The world beyond the mountains was poison and ruin, and at least with him she wasn't alone. He didn't ask her to come, didn't try to convince her. He just began walking east through the snow, as if he knew where he was going, and something in his quiet certainty drew her after him. The wind howled across the valley, and the sky bled with the light of the alien harvesters far away. But they walked for hours, their shadows stretching long and silent. She kept a few meters behind, her rifle slung tight and her knife ready. But she found herself watching his movements instead of his back. How deliberate they were, how precise. For all his injuries, he carried himself like someone who had walked 1,000 such worlds before. By dusk they reached an old highway half buried in frost. The cracked road stretched endlessly across the plains, lined with the skeletons of cars and the blackened bones of trees. Cale paused beside a rusted sign, his glowing fingers brushing the letters. "Human language," he murmured. "Still beautiful." Ava frowned. "Beautiful? It's just a warning sign." He turned his head slightly. "All language is beauty. It is how life declares that it exists." She didn't know how to answer that. The Cathari she'd studied had never spoken about beauty or existence. They didn't speak about anything. But Cale wasn't like them. He paused often to study the smallest things. Frost clinging to a bent traffic light, a bird's skeleton frozen mid-flight, the curve of a broken bridge. There was something almost reverent about the way he moved through the ruins, as if the remnants of humanity were sacred. When they made camp that night, in the shell of an abandoned tunnel, Ava built a small fire with scavenged wood. Cale sat across from her, the soft glow of his body illuminating the tunnel walls. "Why east?" she asked after a long silence. He didn't look up. "Because the last human resistance is there." She almost laughed. "There's no resistance. There hasn't been for years." "There is," he said simply. "I can hear them." "Hear them?" He touched the side of his head. "Your machines still speak. Not loud, but enough. Frequencies hidden beneath the wind." Ava frowned. She had heard nothing, only the endless static that filled the airwaves since the invasion. "And what do they say?" Cale's gaze drifted toward the fire. "They say they are waiting." A chill that had nothing to do with the cold crept up her spine. Waiting for what? For something that can end this. She wanted to dismiss it, to call it alien nonsense, but part of her, some quiet, desperate part, wanted to believe. Hope had become a fragile, dangerous thing, but Cale spoke of it like it was still alive, pulsing somewhere beneath the ashes. They traveled for days. The landscape shifted from ice to rust, from snowfields to charred plains where the soil itself seemed to bleed faint red light at night. They passed old human towns, now hollow, their walls carved with scorch marks. Sometimes Cale would pause before the ruins, head bowed as if in mourning. Ava found herself wondering what he saw through those alien eyes. Once, when they stopped beside the remains of a collapsed radio tower, she asked him, "Why did you really refuse the purge?" He was silent for a long time. "Because once," he said finally, "your kind reached for the stars not with weapons, but with wonder. We watched from afar. We saw your first signals, your first machines, and we admired you. You were chaos, but beautiful chaos. I thought we could learn from that." Ava stared at him. "You watched us? Before the invasion?" "Yes, for centuries. We studied your growth. Some of us wanted to guide you. Others feared you." "Feared us?" she said, incredulous. "You're the ones who can melt tanks with a thought." Kyle looked at her, his eyes dimming slightly. "Fear does not come from weakness. It comes from knowing what another could become." The implication hung in the cold air. Ava shivered. Not from the wind, but from the thought that maybe humanity's destruction had been born not from hate, but from terror. Terror of what they might someday do. That night, she woke to find Cale standing outside the tunnel looking up at the stars. "You don't sleep," she said softly. "No, we dream differently." "What do you dream about?" He was quiet for a long time. About what might have been. The way he said it made her chest ache. She walked to stand beside him, the night air biting at her skin. Above them, the sky burned faintly blue from distant Cathari ships. "You said some of you admired us," she said. "What happened to them?" "They were silenced." "By who?" "By the ones who call themselves the Ascended. The pure Cathari. They believed we should remove all imperfection from the galaxy. They began with themselves. Then they came for you." Ava swallowed. "And you?" "I fought them," he said quietly. "I lost. The words were simple, but the sorrow behind them wasn't. She wanted to ask more, but his eyes, the light that pulsed behind them, dimmed further, and she understood that was all he would say. The next morning, they crossed into the valley Cale had spoken of. It was vast and scarred, filled with the twisted remains of ships, human and alien both. The air shimmered with static, and for the first time Ava heard it too, a faint rhythmic pulse beneath the wind. A signal. There, Cale said, pointing toward a structure half buried in the earth. They are below. Ava's heart raced. She hadn't seen another living human in over a year. Without thinking, she ran ahead, slipping down the ridge and into the shattered remains of a bunker. Inside, dim lights flickered weakly. The air smelled of dust and oil. Then she heard a voice. "Hold it right there!" Ava froze. A man stepped from the shadows, his face gaunt but human. His weapon was old but steady in his hands. Behind him a handful of figures emerged. Men and women, all scarred, all wary. "Human," Ava breathed. "You're alive," the man said. "Barely. Who the hell are you?" "Ava Santoro, biologist, from Geneva Station." The man's eyes widened slightly. "You were with Project Chiron. How did you—" Before she could finish, Cale entered the bunker behind her. The humans reacted instantly, guns raised, panic flashing in their eyes. "Don't shoot!" Ava shouted. "He's with me." "With you?" The man snarled. "That's a Cathari. He's not like them." Kyle didn't move, his voice calm. "If I meant harm, you would already be dead." The soldiers hesitated, uncertain. Their leader lowered his weapon slightly, though his eyes stayed hard. "Talk fast, alien." Ava stepped between them. "He says he knows where the resistance signal came from. He led me here." The man studied Kyle, jaw tight. "And why would one of their kind help us?" Kyle met his gaze. "Because your extinction is a mistake." The bunker fell silent. No one spoke for several long seconds. Finally the man sighed. "If you're lying, I'll put a bullet through both of you," he said. "But if you're telling the truth, then maybe God finally sent us a miracle." They led Ava and Cale deeper underground, through corridors lined with flickering screens. The bunker was larger than it looked, filled with salvaged tech and weary faces. Children slept in corners, their skins smudged with ash. Ava's chest tightened at the sight. Humanity wasn't dead. Not yet. In the command room, the leader, Commander Hayes, he called himself, showed her a holographic map. Red blips dotted the globe, marking active Cathari harvesters. "We've been intercepting fragments of their network," he said. "But it's like trying to fight gods with sticks." Cale stepped forward. "You cannot fight them the way you fight each other. You must strike their core, the Nexus." "The Nexus?" Hayes asked. "The Ascended control all their forces through it. Destroy the Nexus, and the swarm will collapse." "And where is this Nexus?" Kyle hesitated. "In orbit, above the old American continent," Hayes cursed. "That's suicide." "Perhaps," Kyle said, "but it is your only chance." Ava looked at him. "You knew this when you brought me here." "Yes." "Why me?" "Because you understand life," he said simply. "And the Nexus is alive." Her blood ran cold. "You mean it's biological?" "It is a consciousness," Kyle said. "Born from my kind, bound to their will. I helped design it." Hayes slammed his fist on the console. "So you built the damn thing that's killing us?" Kyle didn't flinch. "I built it to protect both our species. They turned it into a weapon." Ava looked between them, heart pounding. Somewhere deep in her mind, she realized the scale of what he was saying. If the Nexus could be destroyed, it might end the war. It might even save what little was left of Earth. When the meeting ended, Hayes left to rally his officers. Ava stayed behind. Cale stood at the edge of the room, staring at the map's red lights. "You really believe we can do this?" she asked. "I must," he said softly. "Otherwise, everything I have done means nothing." She moved closer, studying his face, the flickering light beneath the cracks in his armor, the quiet sadness in his voice. "You risked everything to help us," she said. He turned to her. "I did not risk it," he said. "I chose it." The words lingered in the air, heavy and intimate. For the first time, Ava didn't see a monster. She saw a being who had lost as much as she had, carrying guilt that might never fade. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. The hate that had kept her alive for so long began to unravel, thread by thread, replaced by something she didn't yet dare to name. The bunker became their world. Days passed in a blur of strategy meetings, coded transmissions, and tense silences. Ava worked side by side with the engineers, translating Kale's knowledge into something the human resistance could understand. He spent long hours in the dim light of the command room, his hands glowing faintly as he drew schematics in the air. Maps of alien networks, diagrams of energy conduits, symbols that no one but he fully grasped. The others feared him, of course. They never stopped watching, never stopped whispering. But Hayes tolerated him, if only because Kale's knowledge offered the first real chance they'd had in years. Ava was the bridge between them, and she felt that weight in every breath. Kale never seemed to rest. His wounds had begun to heal, though his skin still shimmered faintly with that strange bioluminescence. Sometimes, when he thought no one was watching, he would touch the old Earth machinery, generators, broken monitors, cracked data tablets, with a sort of tenderness that unsettled her. Once she caught him humming to the static of a dying screen, the sound low and strange, almost mournful. She didn't interrupt. Somehow she understood it was a kind of prayer. When he finally told them what the Nexus truly was, the room went silent. "It was born from the mind of one of our first architects," he said, his voice calm, almost clinical. "We shaped her consciousness into a lattice capable of merging with the galactic network. She became the ascended core. Through her, the others could command every ship, every drone, every mind that had been folded into the swarm." Ava felt her stomach twist. "You enslaved her." Kyle's gaze dropped. "We told ourselves it was transcendence." Hayes slammed his fist on the table. "So you made a god, and then lost control of it." Kyle didn't argue. "You cannot destroy her with weapons. You must sever her connection to the network. You must kill the mind, not the machine." Ava's throat went dry. "You mean, hack her?" "In a way," he said, "but it will not be code. It will require something living to breach her field. A mind strong enough to resist her pull long enough to release the signal." Everyone stared at him. Hayes leaned forward. "And who the hell could do that?" Kale looked at Ava. The room erupted. Voices rose in fury, accusations, refusals, but Ava couldn't hear them. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Why me?" she demanded. "Because your neural patterns are different," Kyle said softly. "Your mind does not yield. You've survived this long in a world designed to kill you. The Nexus cannot predict that kind of defiance." Ava shook her head. "No, I'm a scientist, not whatever this is." "You are more than that," Kyle said. "And you know it." She wanted to hate him for saying it, for making it sound inevitable, but something inside her already knew he was right. She had always resisted. Hunger, despair, the crushing silence of extinction. She had refused to die when everyone else had given up. Maybe that was what he meant. That night, she couldn't sleep. The bunker hummed with the low rhythm of generators, and distant murmurs drifted through the corridors. She found Kale outside, standing at the entrance tunnel, staring into the dark valley beyond. The cold wind tugged at his cloak, scattering the faint dust of his skin into the air. "You shouldn't have told them that," she said quietly. He didn't turn. "It was the truth." "You think I'll just volunteer to die?" He finally faced her, his eyes glowing faintly blue. "No, I think you will choose to live. And in doing so, you might save what's left of your kind." Ava stepped closer, anger rising like heat beneath her skin. "You don't understand us." "You don't understand me." "I understand enough," he said softly. "I have seen what you do for love, for hope, for one another. That is why I fight for you." Her breath caught. There was something in his tone, a quiet sincerity that disarmed her. She looked away, blinking hard. "You say that like you've ever felt it." His voice barely rose above the wind. "I have." The words struck her like a pulse through her chest. She turned to face him fully, her anger faltering. For a heartbeat, she saw him not as an alien, but as a being haunted by his own losses. "Who was she?" she asked. Kyle hesitated. Her name was Aaron. She was, like you, curious, reckless. She believed we could build something better. They made her the Nexus, and when I saw what she had become, I couldn't bear it. That was when I turned against them. Ava's voice broke into a whisper. You loved her. He looked down, the faint light of his eyes dimming. I still do? Silence hung between them, sharp and fragile. Ava wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled in her throat. Instead, she reached out and touched his arm. The surface was warm, alive, and for a second the glow beneath his skin brightened where her fingers met his. He didn't pull away. The next morning, Hayes gathered the team. Plans were made. They would use the old launch facility in the northern desert, one of the last functioning human shuttles still hidden beneath the sand. It had been meant for evacuation, but it could reach orbit if the systems held. Ava would be inside the ship, connected to the interface Kyle would build, a bridge between human consciousness and alien technology. Kyle himself would guide her link from the ground. The rest of the resistance would act as decoys to draw attention from the Cathari patrols. It was, as Hayes put it bluntly, a suicide mission dressed up as strategy. In the following days, Ava threw herself into the work. She studied the alien neural maps Kale drew, memorized every frequency and pulse. The deeper she went, the more she understood how much of their power was built on the same foundations as human thought. Electricity, rhythm, resonance. It was terrifying and fascinating all at once. At night, when exhaustion blurred her mind, she would find Kale in the lower chamber meditating. His body shimmered faintly in the dark, pulsing with quiet light. She would sit across from him and listen to the soft hum of his breathing, the rhythm almost human. Sometimes they talked, about the stars, about the old world, about what it meant to be alive. Other times they didn't need words at all. Once, when she asked him what he would do if they survived, he smiled faintly. Survive first, he said. Then I will decide what I am. She realized then that he didn't fully know who he was anymore. Alien, traitor, exile. Maybe that was what drew her to him. They were both remnants of something broken, both carrying ghosts that refused to let go. When the day of the mission came, the desert burned gold beneath a pale sun. The old launch site was half buried beneath dunes, its towers rusted and skeletal. The shuttle waited like a relic of another age. As the crew prepared it for takeoff, Kyle stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on the hull. This ship was built for hope, he said. Hold on to that! Ava adjusted her flight suit, her throat tight. You'll be with me the whole time? I will be the voice in your mind, he said. If you falter, I will anchor you. She nodded, though her hands trembled. You make it sound so easy. It will not be, he admitted. But you are stronger than you know. Before she could respond, Hayes called for final checks. Kale turned to leave, then hesitated. Ava, he said softly. She looked up. He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. If I do not see you again, remember that I never lied to you. Then he was gone, his silhouette swallowed by the glare of the sun. Moments later, the engines roared to life. Ava felt the ship tremble beneath her feet as the desert fell away. Through the viewport, the sky deepened from gold to black. For the first time in her life, she saw the curve of the earth beneath her, wounded, scarred, but still breathtaking. Kyle, she said through the link, her voice steady now. I am here, came his reply, faint but clear in her mind. She closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of the connection between them, a living bridge of thought and energy. Somewhere above, in the darkness of orbit, the Nexus waited, a mind vast and cruel, woven from both alien brilliance and human tragedy. And Ava Santoro, the last biologist of Earth, was coming for it. She took a deep breath and whispered into the calm, Let's finish this. The stars unfolded before her like the eyes of ancient gods, watching. Below, Kyle's hand pressed against the transmitter, and for the briefest heartbeat, he thought he could still feel the warmth of her touch in his own. The signal flared. The war for the soul of two species had begun. The silence of orbit was a kind that swallowed everything. Sound, breath, even thought. Ava drifted in the dark, strapped into the command cradle of the shuttle as Earth turned slowly below her. The ship's systems hummed softly, guided by Kale's unseen touch through the neural link. His voice was calm in her mind, steady, grounding her against the weight of fear. "You are close now," he said. "Can you see it?" Ava opened her eyes, and there it was. The Nexus. It hung above the Earth like a wound in space, a vast lattice of light and shadow pulsing with alien life. It wasn't a station, not exactly. It was organic, alive, its surface rippling with movement as if it were breathing. The structure glowed faintly blue at its edges, with darker veins of violet spreading inward toward a brilliant, beating core. "It's alive," she whispered. "Yes," Kale said, "and it dreams of domination." The shuttle shuddered as it entered the Nexus's gravity field. Panels flickered and the lights dimmed. Ava gripped the console, every muscle tight. "She knows you're here," Kyle said in her mind. "She can feel you." Ava's heart pounded. "Then she'll know what I came to do." Kyle's voice softened, filled with something that felt almost like pride. "Then show her what it means to be human." The shuttle breached the outer membrane of the Nexus, sliding into a tunnel of glowing filaments that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The ship's systems began to fail one by one. Life support, navigation, power. The alien network was absorbing them, consuming them piece by piece. "Kale," she began, but his voice cut through the static. "Stay with me, Ava. The interference is strong. I will guide you." The neural interface flared and pain stabbed behind her eyes. Images flooded her vision. Flashes of alien cities, burning skies, faces she didn't recognize but somehow felt she should. Kyle's memories, bleeding into her own. On the surface far below, Kyle stood in the desert as the transmitter pulsed with light. His hands were buried in the sand, energy streaming through him into the link. Around him, the sky shimmered with the arrival of Cathari ships. The Ascended had found him. "You betrayed your kind," a voice thundered across the airwaves. Kale raised his head, his eyes glowing like molten glass. "I betrayed monsters." The ground split with the force of the alien landing pods. Armored Cathari soldiers poured out, their weapons humming with lethal light. Kyle straightened, his cloak whipping in the wind. "Ava," he whispered through the link, "whatever happens here, don't stop." She heard him faintly, his voice crackling through the static. "Kale, what's happening?" "Focus," he said. "You're almost at the core." Inside the Nexus, Ava climbed from the failing shuttle and stepped into a vast chamber that pulsed like the inside of a living heart. The walls were translucent, veins of energy glowing beneath the surface. At the center floated a figure, a woman of light and code, her body shifting between alien and human form. "You are the human," the voice echoed through the chamber, layered and harmonic. "You should not be here." Ava felt the weight of the presence pressing against her thoughts, probing her memories. "You're Aaron," Ava said softly. The figure tilted her head, her features flickering between beauty and inhuman distortion. "That name is gone. I am the Nexus. I am perfection." Ava took a trembling step forward. "You were human once," Kyle told me. The light around the figure darkened. "Kyle?" she said, the word dripping with both fury and sorrow. "He still clings to weakness, love, doubt. I purged those from myself, and look how far I have risen." Ava's neural link flared again, and Kale's voice broke through the static. "She's trying to control you." "Don't let her in." "I can feel her," Ava gasped. "She's inside my head." "Anchor yourself to me," Kyle said. "Remember the fire, the wind, the sound of your world. Remember who you are." She did. She remembered the taste of rain on her tongue, the laughter of people long gone, the warmth of sunlight through glass. The memories became a shield against the pull of the Nexus. "You resist," Aaron said, her voice now almost curious. "How?" "Because you forgot what you were fighting for," Ava said. "You call it weakness. I call it being alive." The Nexus screamed, and the chamber trembled. Energy arcs lashed out, slamming into Ava's body. She fell to her knees, pain searing through her veins. Her mind flooded with images again. Kyle's hands stained with light, the burning of cities, the face of the woman before her when she had still been flesh. "Kyle loved you," Ava whispered, "and you let them turn you into this." Below, Kyle fought like a storm. The desert blazed with light as the Cathari soldiers surrounded him. His body glowed brighter with each strike, each movement blurring into arcs of energy. "You could have ruled with us," one of the Ascended shouted. "I would rather die with them," Kale said, "than live as you." He raised his hands and the sand exploded outward in a wave of light. The blast consumed the first wave of enemies, but more descended. The sky was filled with ships, their shadows dark against the stars. He could feel his strength fading, his form fracturing. "Ava," he called through the link, his voice a whisper now, "you must end it." "Kyle," she cried, "they're attacking you. Then make it worth something." Ava rose to her feet inside the chamber, blood running from her nose, her skin burning from the energy coursing through her. The Nexus's core flared brighter, and Aaron's voice grew louder. "You cannot destroy me. I am evolution. I am forever." Ava staggered toward the central node, her vision blurring. "No," she said. "You're just another monster afraid to feel." She reached the control pillar, a living column of tendrils and light, and pressed her hands to it. The neural surge hit her like a storm, slamming her consciousness into the network. She saw everything, the galactic web of the Cathari, their endless hunger, their fear of extinction. And beneath it all, she saw Aaron's consciousness, vast and fractured, screaming for freedom even as it enslaved others. Kyle's voice was fading, weaker with every word. "Ava, do you see it?" "I see her," she whispered. "Then free her." Ava reached deeper into the core of the Nexus, her thoughts merging with the stream of alien data. Aaron appeared before her in the mindscape, no longer light, but flesh and sorrow. "He told you lies," Aaron said. "He made me into this. He cannot be forgiven." Ava shook her head. "He made you because he loved you. They twisted that love into something else." The woman's face softened, confusion flickering through the storm. Ava reached out. "Let me help you." The world around them trembled. The link began to overload. On the surface, Kyle fell to his knees as the transmitter sparked violently. The desert burned white-hot around him. "Ava!" he shouted, his voice raw. "Now!" Ava pressed her palms against Aaron's chest in the vision, her mind screaming as the network tore itself apart. "You are not the Nexus," she said through gritted teeth. "You are human. Remember that." For a heartbeat, Aaron's expression shifted. The light in her eyes changed, from rage to recognition, from machine to memory. "Kyle," she whispered, "I remember." Then the core exploded. A wave of energy burst outward from the Nexus, rippling through space and atmosphere, through every ship, every drone, every ascended mind linked to it. The network shattered like glass. On the surface, the alien armies froze mid-movement, their lights flickering out one by one. Kale looked up at the sky as it burned with white fire. He smiled faintly, the light in his eyes dimming. "You did it," he whispered. In orbit, Ava's ship was thrown free of the collapsing structure. Fire and debris surrounded her as alarms screamed. She barely managed to stabilize the shuttle as the last of the systems flickered. "Kale," she said weakly through the comm, "it's done. She's gone." No answer. "Kyle?" Still nothing. The connection was silent. Tears filled her eyes as the planet's gravity began to pull her down. The Earth loomed closer, clouds swirling beneath her like ghosts. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Hold on, please." Far below, Kale lay in the sand, surrounded by the bodies of the fallen. His armor was shattered, his light dim. He turned his gaze upward as a streak of flame crossed the sky. The shuttle, falling. He reached out a trembling hand as if he could touch it. "You called me a monster," he murmured, voice barely audible. "Maybe I was." His hand fell back into the sand. "But you made me human." Then his eyes closed, and the desert went still. The storm passed. The sky above Earth was silent for the first time in years. The ships that had once filled the heavens hung dark and motionless. In the ashes of victory, 2 species had fallen, and maybe, just maybe, something new could rise. But high above the clouds, the wreckage of the shuttle burned like a dying star, and in its faint light, something flickered. A pulse of energy, weak but alive. The crash had been fire and thunder, but when Ava awoke there was only silence. The world was dim, her lungs aching with smoke and dust. She coughed, the taste of metal sharp on her tongue, and forced her eyes open. Light filtered weakly through the shattered hull of the shuttle. The interior was a ruin. Panels twisted, glass cracked, the control deck half collapsed. Her body screamed with pain as she unbuckled herself from the harness and pulled free. Gravity felt strange, heavier somehow, like the world was holding her down to make sure she didn't forget it was still real. She stumbled toward the breach in the hull and climbed out, blinking into the brightness. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, dunes and wreckage glowing orange beneath the rising sun. For a moment she thought she was dead, caught between dream and memory. But then she felt the wind. It was warm. It smelled of sand, not smoke. The air was breathable. The sky was blue. She sank to her knees, trembling, and for the first time in years, she wept not out of fear but relief. Earth was quiet. The hum of the alien machines was gone. The constant buzz of the harvesters, the drones, the patrols, all gone. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath after too long a nightmare. Her first thought was of Kale. The link was silent, the neural connection dead, but she could still feel something faint, like an echo at the edge of her mind. She followed it, stumbling through the sand, past twisted fragments of the shuttle and scorched alien metal. Her boots left tracks in the soft earth, something she hadn't seen in years, a world no longer scorched to glass. The horizon shimmered with heat, and far in the distance, she saw a figure lying motionless at the base of a dune. Her heart lurched. She ran. The closer she got, the more she could see. The faint glow beneath cracked armor, the stillness of a body that had fought too hard for too long. She fell to her knees beside him. His face was half hidden beneath dust and ash, but his features were unmistakable. Kyle, the alien who had defied his kind, who had stood alone against the Ascended. The one she had once called Monster. "Kyle," she whispered, brushing the sand from his cheek. His skin was cold to the touch, but not lifeless. Faint light still pulsed beneath it, slow and fragile like the heartbeat of a dying star. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "Don't leave me now." For a long moment there was no response. Then, barely audible, a sound escaped his lips. A whisper, cracked and broken. "Ava!" Relief crashed through her like a wave. She leaned closer. "I'm here," she said. His eyes flickered open, faint light swimming beneath the glassy surface. "You survived." She laughed through her tears. "I think so. You sound surprised." "I hoped," he said weakly. "But hope is a human thing," she smiled. "Guess you learned something after all." His lips curved faintly, the ghost of a smile. "You freed her," he murmured. "Aaron?" "She remembered you," Ava said softly. At the end, she remembered. His eyes closed again, and his hand twitched in the sand. Then maybe she is free at last. Ava looked around them, the ruins of war stretching to the horizon, the quiet hum of a dead sky, and realized just how much had ended. The Ascended were gone. Their network was shattered. Humanity, though broken and scattered, still had a chance. "You did it," she said. "We did." Cal shook his head slightly. "No, you did. You showed her what it meant to be alive." She swallowed hard. "You showed me too." His breathing was growing shallower, the light in his veins dimming. Panic tightened in her chest. "Don't you dare," she said. "Don't you dare leave me now." He looked at her, eyes soft, almost human. "I don't want to," he said. "But the energy, it's gone. My body was not made for this world anymore." "Then I'll find a way to fix it." "You can't." "I can try." She gripped his hand, holding it against her chest. "You think humans give up that easily?" The silence between them stretched, heavy and fragile. The sun climbed higher, burning gold across the dunes. Somewhere far off she thought she heard the wind moving through the remnants of a forest. Real wind, real trees. Life returning. Kyle looked toward the horizon. "The world is changing," he said. "Because of you." "Because of us," she corrected. "Don't you dare take that away from me." He almost laughed, a faint rasp of sound. Us? He said quietly. A strange word for a monster. She squeezed his hand tighter. You were never the monster. You just forgot what it meant not to be one. His light flickered again, dimmer now. And you made me remember. His voice was barely audible. When I first saw you, I thought you were fragile. So small, so breakable. But I was wrong. You are the strongest being I have ever known. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Don't talk like that. You're going to live. You have to. Maybe in another way, he whispered. Maybe not as this. For a heartbeat, she didn't understand what he meant. Then the glow beneath his skin began to shift, spreading slowly toward her hand. She felt warmth flood into her body, energy like liquid light. Kale, what are you doing? She gasped. Giving you what remains, he said softly. A gift. A seed. No, stop. It'll kill you. I am already dying. But through you, I can still be part of what comes next. She tried to pull away, but his grip was surprisingly strong. The light intensified, flowing from his body into hers. She felt it sink deep into her chest, burning and beautiful. Kyle, please, she cried. Don't leave me alone. His voice was a whisper in her mind now, fading. You will never be alone. Every breath you take, I will feel it. Every heartbeat, I will remember it. That is how we live on. The light in his body dimmed to nothing, and the last of the warmth faded from his skin. Ava collapsed against him, her tears falling onto his chest. No, she whispered, shaking. No, please. But he was gone. The faint pulse beneath her hands was gone. The desert was silent again, the wind whispering through the dunes. She stayed there for a long time, holding him, until the sun began to dip below the horizon, and the sky turned to gold. Days passed. She buried him beneath a ridge overlooking the valley, where the first green shoots were beginning to push through the sand. She marked the place with the broken crest of his armor, and sat beside it until the stars appeared. The world was healing. Without the Nexus's drain, the skies had begun to clear, the soil to breathe again. She could feel it somehow, life returning. But there was something else too, deep within her chest. When she closed her eyes, she could feel a faint hum beneath her skin, like the echo of his energy. It wasn't just memory, it was part of him. She could still hear his voice in the quiet moments. Not words, but a feeling, a warmth that lived where the grief had been. Sometimes, when she touched the ground, she swore she could feel his pulse in the earth beneath her. Weeks turned into months. The survivors of humanity began to emerge from the shadows. Small groups at first, then more. They found her near the valley, building a small shelter out of the wreckage. Word spread of the alien who had saved them, of the woman who had ended the war. They called her the Keeper, though she never asked for the name. She worked with them, rebuilt with them, taught them what Kale had shown her, how to listen to the world, how to live without fear. When the children asked her what had happened to the monsters, she smiled softly and said, "They were never monsters. They just forgot how to love." Sometimes, at night, she climbed the ridge to where he was buried and watched the stars. The sky was clear now, scattered with constellations she hadn't seen in years. And in the stillness, she would feel it again, that faint hum beneath her skin, steady and sure. "I miss you," she would whisper. And though there was no answer, she always felt the wind shift, warm and gentle, as if he were listening. One night, months later, she was woken by a sound outside. The air was alive with a faint blue glow, soft and pulsing, like the heartbeat of the world itself. She stepped outside, barefoot in the sand, and followed the light up the ridge. When she reached the top, she stopped in awe. The entire valley below was glowing faintly. Tiny lights flickering across the desert floor, each one sprouting from the soil like seeds. Life, luminous and strange, spreading where there had once been death. She sank to her knees, laughter and tears mixing on her face. "You kept your promise," she whispered. The wind brushed her hair, and for an instant she thought she heard his voice. Gentle, familiar, always. The years that followed became a slow rebirth. Humanity learned to coexist with the remnants of the alien technology that still lingered, reshaping it into tools instead of weapons. The world grew green again. Ava grew older, her hair silver beneath the sun, but the light within her never faded. Sometimes, when she worked with the younger scientists who came to learn from her, they would notice how her hands shimmered faintly when she touched the earth, or how the air seemed to warm around her when she smiled. They whispered stories, that she carried alien blood, that she was something more than human now. She never confirmed or denied them. She only said, "I carry a memory that saved us." That's all. And so the legend of the woman and the monster became something else. A story of love that ended a war. When Ava finally grew too old to walk, she asked to be taken to the ridge one last time. The sky that night was filled with stars, and the air glowed faintly blue as the living light of the valley shimmered below. She reached out a trembling hand and pressed it against the earth. "I kept going," she whispered. "Just like you said." The hum beneath her skin answered softly like a heartbeat. She smiled, closed her eyes, and let the warmth take her. When dawn came, the people found her there, peaceful and still. The ground around her shimmered with new light, flowers that glowed faintly in the sunrise, growing where her hands had touched the soil. And those who stood there swore they could feel something in the air, gentle and familiar, like two voices intertwined in the wind. One human, one not. They said it was the sound of the world breathing again. And above them the stars burned brighter as if watching.